Okay, I'm going to explain how to make Patik socks. Patik translated technically means bedroom slippers, and basically what it is another version of a ballet sock, except it's done modularly rather than done in one piece like I showed in my other style. This has a real heavy similarity to the modular sock that I show. It's also in the same origin as this style that I'm fixing to show you, origins in the Turkish culture, and typically it's a lot more colorful. And if you do some looking online, you'll see that it gets done a lot, and it's a style you can do on the Loom, so because you're doing it modularly. And so there's measurements in here, but it's not as much as the modular. You're going to do 2 basic measurements to get yourself started. You're going to do mid-ankle to the floor, and I got 3 inches there, and then you're going to do the very back of the heel to just behind the ball of the foot. Okay, and I got 6 inches there. And what you want to do is you want to take your depth, which is 3 inches from your ankle to the floor, and you're going to multiply that stitches per inch. And I am getting 14.25. I'm going to round down to 14, so I'm going to use 14 stitches, and it's 10 rows per inch, and that's your length, so you're going to multiply your length times your rows per inch, and I get 60. So I need to cast on 40 and do 60 rows. Now, it is up to you what you choose to do. You can choose to do a garter stitch, you can choose to do a seed stitch, you can choose to do 5 if you know which side you're going to make your edge. Like, for instance, this would probably be my edge, because when I do the decrease, I'm going to decrease down. But you need to decide which side is going to be your inside. And when you make that decision, you're going to keep that in mind, because that is going to be where, so if you want to do seed stitch here and then just do stockinette, or if you want to just do garter, it's however you want to do it. Okay, so I'm just going to, actually, you'll need to chain cast on, because you'll want to see a chain to be able to add on. Okay, now there is no continuation like it is in the modular style. What it is you're going to do the top and then you're going to add the bottom. Alright, and that'll make sense when I go in and start showing you. So chain cast on 14 if you're going to follow along. Keep in mind I'm about an 8.5, and you'll want to keep a chain going all the way around the edge. Keep that in mind as well, because if you keep the chain going around the edge, you can add elastic to make sure that it stays on your foot. Okay, that's the only problem I've seen with the ballet socks. You usually have to add some elastic. Say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and stick that on as 14. Okay. Now, keep in mind I'm actually using a number 3. Yeah, using a number 3 to do this. Alright. Now, what we want to do is I'm going to knit my way back. Now, the thing to keep in mind is you want to chain on both sides, so you always want to slip the first stitch and knit the last stitch. Keep that in mind, so no matter what you do, knit the first, slip the first, knit the last. Rule of thumb. That gives you the chain that you want. Alright? Okay, so we're going to knit our way over. Alright, so we're knitting our last. I'm going to slip that. And then we're going to do knit. And actually I'm going to do a garter stitch edge. Now that I think about it, I'll do a garter stitch edge. So I'm going to knit my way back. Actually, no. Sorry, y'all are seeing me make decisions. Okay. So we're going to slip that first stitch and we're going to actually purl 4. So we can stick with 5. So here's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Alright, then you're going to knit your way over. And this will be row 2. Remember, you always knit your last stitch. Slip your first stitch, knit all the way back over. This is row 3. And remember, you're going to do 60 rows. Then we'll do the whole front decreasing section. And knit that over. Push those down. Slip the first, purl the first 4. This is if you're following along. It's entirely up to you if you're making whatever size you want. And you can say I'm giving you the formula: mid-ankle to floor, and then to just behind the ball of the foot to the edge of the heel. Alright, so go ahead and pause the video. That's 4 rows. You just continue these last 2 rows over and over again for 60 rows, or however many rows your length was that you measured, just behind the, let's see if I have it. Okay, you'll see here it's behind the ball of the foot all the way to the heel. Okay, which means you're measuring like right here and back. Alright, you can use your foot mold for that to measure that if you'd like. Alright, so pause the video and get your 60 rows done, and we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the decrease portion, where you do 3 sections of decrease and increase, creating 3 triangles that splays around. Okay, and then we're going to work our way back. The top of the sock's easy. The bottom's a little more tricky. Okay, so go ahead and get your 60 rows and then we'll go from there. Okay, I have completed my 60 rows, as you can see. And now I need to do the toe, where it goes rounded here. Okay, and when I experimented with this and everything, this is actually the best method I know to do that toe area. Now, you were working with a 44 peg loom, and I think you end up working with 7 stitches as you're divided by 3. You're going to use that. Okay, you're going to use that 7 peg thing. And what you want to do is you want to be decreasing from this end over, and you're not going to be messing with the end peg for decreasing, so that you can keep this nice smooth chain for if you want to add a strand of elastic to it. So what you want to do is you want to knit your way over. Okay, and Also, just to let you know, I'm using half the number of pegs for this too as well. So you can use either 7 from that, or you can just calculate in half of the pegs to use. Okay, so our next to last peg, wrap and turn, and then you're going to purl 3 when you've been purling 4, because you're taking out a purl. You got to keep up with that. So then you're going to knit your way over. Okay. So you got to keep up with your garter stitch if you're doing one, or your seed stitch if you're doing it, and that kind of thing. So then you want to knit your way over, slipping that first peg to just before the last wrap and turn. And then you wrap and turn. So now you have 2, and you want to have a total of 7. Oops, I need to purl 2. Don't forget, keep up with your stitch patterning. Purl 2. Okay. And then knit my way over. And what you're doing is you want 7 wraps and turns in here. So go ahead and pause the video and get your 7 wraps and turns done, and then we will go from there. And you will see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remember, you didn't bother with the first peg. Okay? But you'll either do your regular sock calculation, that divided by 3, which is usually number B, or you can divide the pegs in half. I probably figure the easiest way to do is divide the pegs in half and use that many to decrease and increase. So now we've decreased. What we want to do is we want to increase. So basically what we're going to do is knit our way over into the first wrap and turn. And knit those 2 stitches together. Then I always like to start with the peg I finished with and knit my way back. Knit my way over, always knitting that last peg and slipping the first one when working your way back on those end pegs. And then we get to our next wrap and turn, and we knit the 2 together, starting with the peg you finished with. Knit your way back. Now when you start to get up into those stitches where you have your garter stitch, remember to purl your way back, alright? Let me show you up to that point because that's kind of vital. So slip, knit over to the next wrap and turn, knit 2 together, push down. And then you'll see you're going to be doing your next one. We'll start adding in your garter stitching, which means you'll be purling on those ones back. You can garter stitch this whole thing if you so choose. So then you're going to work your way back to the next wrap and turn and knit that over like you normally would, except we're reaching our first garter stitch peg. Alright, so you knit both those over, then you're going to come back around, purl that first stitch, and then knit your way to the end. Now this system that we're going to do, you're going to end up doing a total of 3 times. Okay. And you're going to work your way back over to the other side. knit the 2 stitches over, purl it, then purl the next one because we're keeping up with our garter stitch edge, and then knit our way over. And knit your way to the next one. Start with a purl those 3, and knit your way over. One more increase to happen, and then I'm going to show you one more thing you have to do after your increase, and it resets you, and then you're going to follow right at the very beginning of this system again with your decreasing. And you're going to do it a total of 2 more times. Okay. Okay, we're knitting over our last wrap and turn peg. We're going to purl 4. Then we're going to knit our way over. Okay, now that we've added in our last wrap and turn, you don't want to start decreasing again. You want to work all the way to the end and all the way back, like you normally would. And this kind of resets you to go in and start decreasing and then increasing again. Okay, and then you'll start from the beginning of this section where you're doing the decreasing, and you're going to do that 2 more times, what we've just done. Okay. So then we'll slip that first stitch, purl 4, and then we'll be ready to start our decreasing again. All right. And knit your way over. And this completes your first section. And as you pull out, you'll see you have, here's your decreased area, and then you have more of a rounded edge to work with over here. Nice and smooth rounded edge where you can easily see the chain. Okay, so I'm going to get you started, and then I'm going to tell you to go in and complete 2 more sections like we just did. Decrease down 7, increase out 7, do a 2 regular rows, decrease down 7, increase out 7, and do 2 regular rows. Alright, so I'll get you started and then let you run free so you know where we're starting from. So you're going to knit your way over to just before the last 2 pegs. Wrap and turn. Remember to keep up with your garter stitch edge and how many pegs you used. I'm going to be purling 3 because I purl 4 typically. And then I'm going to knit my way back. And that gets you started as to where we're starting out from and where you need to repeat. Okay, so decrease down 7, increase out 7, do 2 regular rows. Do that a total of 2 more times. Okay, so you're going to do this 2 more times. Alright, so pause the video, get that much done, and then we'll be ready to start the next section, which is do another 60 rows back. Alright, pause the video, get your toe done, and we'll move from there. I've completed my 3 sections, and as you can see, there's my width, there's my toe, and now I need to go back up. And you can see there's my first decrease, increase, my second decrease increase, and then there is my third decrease increase. This gives me a nice rounded toe. Okay, so now what I want to do is go in and do my other half of my upper part of my sock. Okay, and that's where you're going to do your 60 rows back, and that's going to be like it always is. I'll show you the first 2 rows. So you slip that first stitch, knit your way over, slip your first stitch, purl 4, and then knit the rest of the way over. Repeat these 2 rows for 60 rows. Bind off as you normally would, and leave yourself a long tail to be able to sew up the back end, and that will get us ready to actually start the sole. Okay, alright, so pause the video, complete the other half, go ahead and bind off as you regularly would. So you want to bind off, and you should have a tighter chain than this, and then you want to cut you a long strand so that you can sew up the back, because we're going to be working our sole from the back to the front. Okay, alright, so pause the video, get that much done, and then we will go from there. Okay, I have done with the top of my sock, and while yes, you see it that it rolls, that's okay, because when you go in and you start adding the chain, it flattens out. Okay, there's your toe, and here is your actual sock area. Now, I like to work my sole from the heel to the toe. Alright, and what I like to do first is actually sew up the heel section. Okay, I've already cut my long tail, and I'm ready to start sewing. Okay, I'm going to send it through the first chain that I can find, which is usually the slip. Okay, and then I go in and I hunt my first chain down, and I send the needle through there. Then I hunt my next chain down, which is right there, and I send it through there. Now I'm also wanting to start sewing in my edging, my actual little loop that I started with. So find your next chain, send the needle through, and then send the needle through the next chain. Now one side of the chains is going to be a little looser than the other side, because one side is bind off and one side is your cast on. So it'll look a little different than you might expect. Okay, so find your next chain, and then your next chain. Okay, and then you find your next chain, and then your next chain. Okay. And you just keep doing this all the way down. As I said, I keep working in my slip stitch tail while I'm doing this, so that it's nice and worked in. Okay, we're down to our last one. Alright. tug on it a little. You'll see a little bit of a seam right there because of the loose chain. Okay, and then I like to go in and start weaving my end in for this. And then this will take care of the back of the heel, and then we're ready to start figuring up our sole, which there's some math to it, and it's similar to the modular sock, but it's a little different. Okay, and then we're going to cut that end. Okay, now we are ready to start the sole of the sock, but we need to know what we want to do. Okay, now I have measurements. Now you need to have what is from the tip of the toe to the widest part of the ball, which is why your foot mold paper cutout is really helpful. So you find where the tip of your toe is to the fattest part of the mold, and then that to when it starts to decrease down for the heel is a measurement, and then from there to what the heel measurement is and what it's down to. So for instance, I also need to measure in width as well as the length. So there's two measurements that are going, and for instance the widest part is 3.75 inches and the arch is 2.5, and in the length between the tip of the toe to the widest part of the ball is 3 inches, and from the widest part of the ball to where it starts to narrow down for the heel, which is the arch section, is 4 inches, and from that to the tip of the heel is 2.5 inches for me personally. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to take your sections 1, 2, and 3, and you want to multiply them by rows per inch. Then you want to take the ball measurement and the arch measurement, and you want to multiply those by stitches per inch. Okay, so that tells you how many stitches you need to increase or decrease down to, and it also tells you, and on this we're mostly going to be increasing, okay, rather than decreasing. You're only going to be decreasing when you start getting to the toe. Now keep in mind, you typically do a standard sock equation. So number B is actually what you're going to decrease it down to or start with. And for this one, I believe I made it with 7. So we're going to start with 7. We're going to increase out to, start with 7, increase out to, 11.8, then you'll increase out again to 17.8. Okay, so and then you'll decrease down to 7. So that gives you an idea how that works. Then you have your which is number D, E, F, G, H. Okay, and so you take your number G and minus by number B, which is your 7, and number G was the ball times the stitches per inch, and that's a temporary decrease, but for this one it's going to all be increased. So I'm going to actually kind of reverse this so it makes more sense. So actually we should be starting with number H minus number B equals total increases. Total increases divided by 2 is number K, and that's how many row sets. That's how many actual total decreases per row if you're doing 2 decreases per row. And you're going to be doing that with number G minus number H, and number H was the arch, and that gives you the total increases there, which is number J, and then number G minus number B is the decreasing actually, so the total decreasing divided by 2 is number I. Then you take number D, which is your section here, and divide it by I, which is last equation you did for your decrease, and that gives you how many row sets there are in it. So this section here gives you how many row sets there are in each section of the foot. Okay, so what we need to do is find out what we need to start with. We need to start with 7. Okay, so we're going to go from 7 to 12, because it was 11.8 up here, and we rounded up to 12. And that's going to give us a total of 5. And so we're going to be increasing by a total of 5, and that's we're going to round up to 3. So we're going to have 3 total rows that are going to be for 2 increases. Okay. And when you go and do that, it's going to be 8.3, so 8 rows. So what that means is you're going to have a total of 25 rows from your heel to your arch, the tip of your heel to your arch, okay, because I had 2.5 inches and I'm 10 rows per inch. And what that means is you divide that by 3, 25 divided by 3, which is this number here, and I'll give you 8.3. So you're going to do basically 8 rows per set. So you're going to do a total of 6 rows, increase, increase. So a row with an increase and a row with an increase. Okay, and then when you go to do your arch to your ball, it was a total of 40 rows because it was 4 inches divided by 3 again, because that was 18 minus 12, which is what I got for my arch and then my ball, and I rounded it up to 18 because it was 17.8. So it's 3.75 times 4.75, which is 17.8, and I rounded up to 18, and I minus that by 12, which was the arch measurement, and I got 6, and divided by that 2, that's a total of 3. So there's a total of 6 decreases, and you'll do 3 sets basically. And in that, you're going to do 13 rows. So basically, you're going to do 11 rows, and then you're going to do an increase and an increase, a row with an increase and a row with an increase. Okay, and this will all make sense when I do it. Then you have the next equation, which is 30, which is my ball to my tip of my toe, and that's going back from 18 to minus 7, which is a total of 11 total decreases, divided by 2, which is 5.5, and I rounded that up to 6 total decreases. But your goal is to get to 7 to sew up the tip of the toe. And so when you divide 30 by 6, you get 5, so it's going to be a total of 3 rows, then a decrease and a decrease. A row of a decrease, and then a row at the end of the decrease. And I know that's really complicated and making sense and everything, but it'll make more sense when I go in and do this, okay? Alright, so what we want to do is we want to take and make sure that the positive side is facing down when we go to add our stitches, alright? And you want to find where your center section is, which is that pink. Okay, and so I'm going to add pink as 1. Then you go to your next chain, and you want to add that as 2, and then 3, and then 1 more as 4. And you're going to add 3 on this side. So then you're going to add 1, 2, and then let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and add 1 more. Oops. And add 1 more chain, makes 7. And it may be a little snug to add the 7th one, but you can do it. There. Okay, because it's only going to be there temporarily. Alright, so you added your 7, and the reason why the points on all these isn't mattering so much is because you're removing 7 chains, and you're not going to have 7 chains on the other end. So giving and taking it makes it fairly easy to end up about accurate. So I'm going to do a slip stitch And my first row, no matter what it is actually just a straight out knit, okay, just to get things started. So we're starting out with 7 because that's what we get when we do our standard equation. That's where heel and toe gets usually decreased down to. Okay, now that is going to count as a row. Now what you want to do is we're just going to be adding chains on top of the end peg right now. Okay, so we're going to find our next chain, which is a purple, and we're going to add it. Now you can choose to add the whole chain or just half the chain, but if you're going to add half the chain, make sure it's the chain that's closest to the positive side and not the wrong side, or you'll end up with a ridge that shows up. Okay, so what you want to do at this point is then you want to knit your way over and then purl those two together. If you don't want a ridge to show up, a chain ridge to show up, you'll want to actually purl those 2 stitches together. Okay, and that is row 2. Then you're going to add a chain over here, and you're going to slip that first stitch, knit your way over, purl the 2 stitches together. That's row 3. Add the next chain, which looks like it's a turquoise color. Slip that first stitch, knit your way over, and this is row 4. Make sure you purl those last 2. You can knit them together, but you will have a chain edge that goes all the way around. Okay, so purl that and add you another chain, which is here, which is turquoise, and then you're going to be, this is row 5. And then purl the stitches together, and then add the next chain, which is pink, and this is 6, and then you'll have reached the 2, which is where you're going to do your increase on each side. Okay, and I'll show you how to do an increase. So this is 6, because we're about to complete a set. So here's 6, row 6. And then what you're going to do, instead of laying the next chain on top of that end stitch, you're going to lay it on top of the next empty peg, and that is your increase. Okay, so then you're going to slip that first stitch, and you will purl it. It makes all the difference to purl that last chain you just increased by. So you're just going to purl it. That's row 7. Then you're going to add a chain to the next available peg. Make sure that's correct. Yes, that's correct. Okay. Add a chain to the next available peg and knit your way over, and this is row 8, and you've just completed this set. Okay. Then you're going to be adding chains back on top. So that's a set, and I suggest you have a stitch marker, a row counter for this. It makes it easier. So now you're going to go back and you're going to start adding a chain to the top of the end stitch. You're going to do that for 6 rows, and then on row 7 you'll add 1 to the end, and then on row 8 you'll add 1 to the end, and you'll have so we started out with 7, now we have 9, then you'll have 11. Okay, and I would suggest you keep count of your rows, and you either need to come to a total of 25 rows first, or you need to get that last increase in if your increase comes before the 25 rows to finish. Okay, and when I get close to that, I'll explain it, but now you just want to add stitches on top of the end stitches like we just did, and then you increase, and you'll repeat that, I believe, 2 more times. Okay, and it's a total of 3 times because you're trying to get to a total of 12 stitches, or 12, yeah, approximately 12 stitches. Okay, so pause the video, get your 3 sets of 8 done, and increasing on row 7 and 8 on each set. Okay, to my last 3 rows, and I've got 1 increase. I don't have 2 that I'm doing because I need to get up to 12, and if I do 2 I get up to 13, so we don't want that. So I'm at row 7 of my 3rd set, and I've already done my increase over here. So I'm going to knit my way over, and then I'm just going to add for 2 more rows to make a total of 25 rows. Okay, and then I'll be ready to start my next section. And remember, with every row you need to add a chain to the top of that end stitch. Okay, so that's row 7, and then I add a stitch to the top of that. Makes row 8 that we're doing, and then because it's 25 we have 1 more row that we'll need to do. Then we'll be ready to start our next section of the sole. Okay, one more row, and then I will explain the next section. And purl our stitches together. Okay, now if you look at the bottom, you'll see you are working a sock. See that beautiful heel? Alright, now we're to our next section. So we need to do 40 total rows, and we have a total of 6 increases that we have to do. And so when we divide it by 40 divided by 3, because there's 2, I usually try to do at least, back to back, 2 increases back to back. So our row sets are going to be 13. So what you're going to do is you're going to do 11 rows where you're adding chains to the end, and then you'll increase 1 on the end for row 12, and then increase 1 for on the row for row 13. Okay, and then what you'll do is you'll do that repeat over and over until you get 40 pegs. You'll either decrease, but you'll either increase, which is the goal, is to get to a total of 18 stitches. So you're trying to get to 18 stitches, and that is your goal for this next one. So you're going from 12 to 18 stitches. So the goal is to make sure that you get those 18 stitches in. So if it starts hitting close to 40, rows and you haven't done the full increase, you need to make sure that on the last row 40 that you do the increase. But I've already done one of these socks, and I found that the sole worked out pretty darn close. Not much that was off for it. Okay, so what you want to do is go in and do been doing like we've been doing, except you're going to do 11 rows, and then you'll do an increase and then an increase for a total of 13 rows. So like for instance, this is row 1, okay, and you're going to end up doing this for 3 sets as well. All right. So purl those 2 together. This is row 1, and this is row 2. Okay, and I'll do this for 11 rows. Then you'll increase on one end for row 12 and increase on the other end for row 13. Okay, so pause the video and do a total of 11 rows. This is 2 rows. Alright, so pause the video and do 11 rows of just adding chains to the end, and then I'll show what row 12 and 13 is, okay? Okay, we've done 11 rows, and now we're ready to work up to row 12 and 13, which is our increase. So we're going to move that over to the next available empty peg as our increase, and then we are going to knit our way over. And remember to purl that increase. And that is row 12, and for row 13 we add our next chain as an increase to the end there. So we add that, and this is going to be a row 13, and you should now have 14 stitches on the loom. Now, after showing you this, you're going to repeat this 13 row set until you have 40 rows. Okay, so you just follow this 14 row set until you have 40 rows and 18 stitches. So you need the combo: 18 stitches, 40 rows, whatever comes first. If the 18 stitches needs to come before the 40 rows, then on the 40th row do the last increase, but this should come before 40 rows. Okay, so you should get up to 18 stitches before you get to 40. I found that worked, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so and if it starts working up differently, I'll come in and I'll show you what it finishes up as. Okay, so that is what it should be looking on the bottom, and as you can see, that's what it looks like. Okay, so pause the video, get the next section done. So where you're going to be at is when you finish the section, you should be here, and this much should be done, so that all that's left is the ball, and that'll be decreasing. Okay, so pause the video, get to your ball done. It should be all your increases and 40 rows. So you need 18 stitches and 40 rows. But just follow this 13 row pattern and get to whatever comes first. Okay, so we have gotten up to the ball of our foot, and we should have 18 total stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And what should have happened was you increased on row 38, and you increased on row 39, and you did a regular row for row 40. Okay, and that's what it should have come out to. All right, now we need to figure out our ball to our toe. Okay, and we're going to be going from 18 stitches to 7 stitches, but the measurement is 3 inches. And so our total rows for the ball area is 30, and it's going to be divided by the 6, because 18 minus 7 is 11. 11 divided by 2 is 5.5, round up to 6. What that means is you're going to have 6 decreases, alright, or not even, it may only be 5, okay. So total, so you're going to be doing this 5-row set, because you're going to do a total of 30 rows, because it's 3 inches times rows per inch. So there's your 30 for that section, and then you want to divide that by 6, which is 5 rows per set, okay, with an increase on both sides, okay, like 6 times. So it's going to be 6 times 6 sets, and you're going to be decreasing by 11 stitches and that kind of thing. And so that's what you're going to be doing, okay, and what this means. Alright, so I'm here. I'm going to add my next chain as I normally would for this section. I'm going to knit my way over. This is going to be row 1. Okay, then you're going to purl the 2 stitches together. That's going to be row 1. Then you're going to add the next chain over here, and you're going to knit your way over. This will be row 2. You're going to add another chain. This will be row 3. So now our next row, which is going to be row 4, is going to be a decrease. Now, my suggestion would be is you can just decrease over and add a chain, but if you don't want too much bulk on your decrease sections, you lift up that outer the outer stitch, then you lift up your next stitch, you move your next stitch over, then you put your first stitch back down. There's 2 stitches right there, and then what you can do is pull up your next chain as you normally would on the end. Now on that decrease one here, you'll knit those 2 together, and then you'll purl those 2 together, okay? So you'll slip that first one, and then you will knit your way over. You'll knit these 2 stitches together, then you will purl these 2 stitches together, okay? Now we're going to decrease on this side, which will be row 5, and that stitch on top of that next stitch, and then put your last stitch on the end peg. Then you will add your next chain, knit your way over, then knit the 2 stitches together, and then purl your 2 stitches together. Alright, you will repeat what we just did over and over until you have a total of 7 stitches left, okay, and then we'll go from there. So pause the video, get that much done, and then we'll go from there to finish closing up the toe and that kind of thing. Okay, as you can see, I'm down to basically my last decrease, because we're decreasing in odd numbers, so we're only going to decrease 1 last time, and I'm going to do it on my very last row. Okay, so I've finished here. I've done my 4th row, and then I'm getting ready to do my last decrease. So I'm going to lift that stitch, lift the next stitch, move it over, and move that there, and let's see, going to add my next chain, and then I'm going to knit my way over, knit those two together, and then purl those two together. At this point, you want to bind off your stitches, and you should have approximately 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chains, okay, in comparison to your decreases of 7 stitches left. Okay, so we're going to bind off. So I'm going to slip that first stitch, I'm going to knit the next stitch, and this is like a regular bind off, so you just toss the bottom loop over, but don't do it too tight because you're going to be sending a needle through this. Alright, catch you a chain, pull it through, pull the sock through. Now you are to sewing up that tip-toe. Alright, so I'm going to thread my needle. Okay, and what I want to do is find my first chain, which is right here. So I want to find my first chain. I'm going to send that needle through it. See, and then I'm going to pull through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my next chain, just send the needle through, and then send the needle through the next chain. Okay, let's see if I can't get it to focus in. There it is, see? Chain and chain. Okay, so I find my next chain, send it through the next chain. You're going to do this all the way across. Okay, find my next chain, send it through that one, then find my next chain, which is my last one. Alright, now this is where we're going to have it sewn up, and as you can see, there is your modular Patik, which is bedroom slipper. It's basically a modular version of a ballet sock. Alright, and so what you want to do now is slip that through there, and then you're going to weave in. Alright, and basically that is how you make a ballet Patik, as I'll call it, so that you know it's different from the others. A Patik sock. Alright, and there you go.